Hey everyone, welcome back to Like a Boss, featured here on the Grit Daily News channel. I'm Loralyn Mears, your host of the show, and well, let's get right to it.
We've got Robin Rotenberg in the house today, and she's a new author. The book is called Pound On: From the Glass Slipper to the Glass Ceiling. And that deals with all kinds of corporate journeys that women have faced and the obstacles that they've had to, no, well, not only overcome, but figure out how to be able to move beyond them so that they can help themselves and help each other. Robin is the founder of Alpha Women Work. Hey, let's give a welcome to Robin. Hi, Robin.
Hi, Laura Lynn. How are you?
Well, I'm good. And I'm always excited to hear about the journeys of other gals and what they've faced in corporate and some interesting things that I've seen and heard about you related to even Queen Bee syndrome. So we're going to have to get into that a little bit. I think that's going to get our audience excited.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, Robin, tell us about Alpha Women Rock.
Alpha Women Rock is part of a company of brands or a host of brands, different kinds of companies that I put together to consult and to coach and to really help women, especially earlier in career women.
Now, you've already had tremendous success working for BASF. You've been an attorney. You've got all kinds of things behind you. But if I said, Robin, dare to dream, what is the wild and crazy vision of success that you have for Alpha Women Rock?
I would love it if Alpha Women Rock were a household name that everybody, especially women, knew about Alpha Women Rock and knew about the Rotenberg axis and how to become an alpha woman and the different steps that you have to take to reach different levels of alpha.
Now, we talk about getting to that stage where you are a recognized household name. It's not easy. You were at BASF, which is a household name, and then you ventured out on your own. What do you wish that you had known before you did that?
I wish I had known how much was involved in it because it looks so easy to just have an idea, around something that you want to pursue or a service that you'd like to provide. And it takes a while to have the confidence in yourself to know that you have something to say and something to teach other women or other men, because I have a lot of clients who are men. But there are a lot of elements to it. There's the element of starting a business, forming a company, writing your own book, interviewing people, marketing yourself, making sure that people know you're out there and what kind of skills you have. So there's a lot involved in it: lawyers, accountants, advisors, marketing people. And not to scare anybody off, because I still think that it's really worthwhile. It's how much of a dinosaur I was in terms of some things, like technologically, because when you work in a big company, you walk in, your desk is there, everything is provided for you. You have an IT person who helps you. You have someone who manages your phones. You don't have to buy your own paper or pens. And, you set up in your house, which we've all done during the pandemic, but you set up and it's like, oh, I need such and such. But it's also just the whole trappings around running a business and having to do everything yourself, really being a one-woman show. That was what was a surprise to me, because it's not just enough to have an idea, even around the book. When you think about even the simplest thing is, or it sounds like it is, the book's cover. Okay. So covers are important because it attracts you to the book, but what's involved in it's the cover, it's the title, it's the illustration. Do you want to trademark it? Do you have a particular symbol that you're using? So the simplest things, when you hand it to somebody and you say, here's my book, the work that went into it and the work that's behind it is just unfathomable until you've done it.
Oh, amen to that. As someone who has published a couple of books and who has ventured out on her own and done startups, both as a solopreneur and as a startup, I get it. It's called death by a thousand cuts, right? I mean, all the stuff you didn't plan on, you're like, really? Today?
Yes, yes, yes. And that every state in the United States has its own tax rules and tax filings. And I wanted to sell merchandise, for example, on my website. First of all, I didn't know I was going to need a website. And then I hired somebody to form one for me. And I did most of the design, which was also something new. But when you go to sell something, how do you sell something? Because we see all these people. I mean, I see my daughter selling stuff online or buying stuff online, but to actually do it as a business, to really set it up, takes a lot of time and a lot of know-how. And then when you sell it, it's like, well, is the shipping included? Is the tax included? How do I remit the tax? What do I do? So there are all these parts and pieces that really take a lot of time and a lot of research.
Now, I'm going to take a little bit of a leap here because looking at your background, you went to my alma mater, Queen's University, and then you jumped, south of the 49th and came here to the States, to Jersey, where I am now. So funny that we're on the same path. There were probably a lot of
Yes.
differences, right? That you had from a Canadian perspective versus coming to the States.
Oh, yes, and totally different. I think as you probably know, I mean, the difference between US and Canada is really marked. You don't realize it until you get here and you live here. And you have to really live in a country to totally understand it and to understand the culture. And I grew up in Toronto, so I was, 75 miles from the US border. And when I came here, I was shocked at how different it is, how different businesses, how different a US workplace is, because I believe you have to plant your feet and call it home no matter where you are, or you won't feel like home is anywhere. Because I've been here for long enough that Toronto has really changed also. So when I go back and forth, neither place can feel completely comfortable if I didn't have an attitude that this is my home. The difference, the biggest difference that I can say between being in the US and Canada is scale.
Assuming that moving from Canada to the States wasn't the hardest thing that you had to do, can you share what that was?
I think that the hardest thing that I had to do in my career with any job that I took, but particularly moving to the US, was learning a whole different profession, because I started here heading up the corporate communications department, and journalism is a profession that has a lot of skill to it, and I was completely unfamiliar with it, and I had to get used to and learn all of the things that the department was doing, and that was really hard.
Now, with all that you've seen, including the interviews of the seven other gals and your corporate journeys that you've covered in your book, Pound On, can you share one best tip for the next generation of women?
Make your own rules. I've always believed that you need to make your own rules about whatever you're going to be doing in your career. Every job that I took on, I had people telling me, don't do it, don't take it, you won't like it, it's too much responsibility, it's out of your comfort zone. And I took them anyway. The other one is have integrity, never lose sight of who you are, but that should be part of your rules.
And that's absolutely so Canadian, right? Integrity is at the core of all us Connect goals, right?
Yes, you bet. You bet. We always have to have that integrity, but it's a rare resource. I mean, it really is, and it grounds you and allows you to really pursue your dreams in a way when you can still look at yourself in a mirror.
Now, the whole idea of integrity and just even a Canadian value ties into one of the phenomenon that you've raised, which is queen bee phenomenon, how in corporations, women like to uphold that queen bee title. And in fact, they'll go around and sting other women who they are threatened by. Can you talk to us a little bit about queen bee phenomenon?
Sure. Unfortunately, I'm quite familiar with it. I've been stung many times by the queen bees. When I first started in a big law firm, there was one senior female partner, and she declared that she wasn't going to help any of us because she felt that nobody had helped her, even though her family had started the firm, which was kind of interesting. But it made me vow that I would always help other women. But in every place I've ever worked, there has been a queen bee that refused to help other women. And in fact, it shows up in the research all the time. And in the research, there's some debate about whether queen bee syndrome still exists, but I can tell you it's alive and well. These queen bees are alive and well, and they will not help us. We have to find other ways to pursue our dreams than waiting for a queen bee to help us.
If I gave you some magical pixie dust and said, Robin, you get to change one thing from your past, what would you change?
Am I allowed to bring people back?
You can do
Or
anything
is
you
it
want. This is a
something?
podcast.
I think I would bring my mother back so she could see my success and see what I accomplished. But professionally, um, it's an interesting question because I don't think I would change anything professionally. I think that even though I wasn't as intentional as I could have been, which is some advice that I give to earlier in career women, is be intentional, plot your path. and make sure you're comfortable with whatever it is you do. I don't think I would really change anything in my career because I don't think the decisions that I made were mistakes.
Well, thank you for sharing that. With this podcast, one of the things that really drives us, really the impetus behind it, is to help each other out, and not just women helping women, but just people helping each other. So how can our audience help you?
I think that our audience could help me by going to my website and having a look and giving me some feedback if they like about what they see on it. It's www.alphawomenrock.com. Taking a look if they're interested in Pound On, and any feedback that they could give me, that would really be a big help.
And that's how we learn, right? Is from feedback and being open to that. So
I know
amen
they
to
tell
that.
us it's a gift. They tell us feedback's a gift. When you first start getting feedback, you really don't believe that. It's like, what are you talking about?
It's all about how that feedback is delivered, right? If it's delivered with malice and it's intended to be hypercritical, it doesn't feel good. But if it's intended to help somebody and help them get unstuck and move forward, well, the spirit of that intention comes through and it can be a completely different experience.
Yes, I think that it has to do with why people are motivated to give you the feedback also.
All right. Last question, most important, of course, is all about matching your shoe style to your personality. So now, if I peeked into your closet, what am I going to see? Are you a boots, stilettos, sneakers, flats, or flip flops kind of gal?
Well, I have more shoes probably than Imelda Marcos, but I would say stilettos. And if you look on my Instagram handle, it says Steel Stiletto Maven,
Well,
Style
there you
Maven.
go.
Yeah,
I
I
had you
love
pegged.
stilettos. Yeah, love stilettos.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Robin, for stopping by our Like a Boss podcast, sharing a little bit about Alpha Women Rock and your upcoming book, Pound On.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, Loralyn. It's been great being here and chatting with you.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?